Want to do the Miami Vice, David Caruso? Hi, welcome to Neighborhood Mechanics.
My name's Kevin.
I'm George,
And I'm Chris.
and we're here to help you learn how to do basic things to your car. Kevin here is a master mechanic, Red Seal certified. I'm your regular backyard guy that tries to do things on his own, and I'm pretty good at it, but it'd be nice if I had a bit of guidance, and that's what we're going to try and do for you. Kevin's going to walk me through stuff, and we're going to use Chris's car as a victim for our first episode here. We're going to show you how to change some spark plugs.
First victim, 1996 Mercedes C220.
Exactly. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
So it's Chris's car, so I think you should do all the work.
Yeah, well, I'll show you guys what I've learned so far and what I've been up to here.
All right.
And I've taken this apart a couple times to send you guys the pictures and show what I've been up to. So to begin with, and you can, some of the things that I don't know the proper names for, you can explain those as we walk through. But there's a couple things that we have to do to get to the spark plugs. And the spark plugs in this car are under this plate right here.
All right.
And they have a couple little bolts. There's one here, and there's a third one hidden under here. And so
Kevin, what is the standard for spark plug replacement? I mean, these are newer cars. My first car was a '68 Plymouth, and I'd be changing those plugs every 5,000 miles, which is about 8,000 kilometers, I guess. You used to have to do oil changes every 1,000 miles, which is not even 2,000 kilometers. In a modern car, within 15, 20 years even, what are we looking at for spark plug changing, other than some catastrophic failure?
Well, I think a couple of photos that Chris had sent me, it looks like these plugs had quite a gap in them. I don't know if they were platinum or not. We'll have a closer look once they get pulled out. But the new platinum plugs, whether Bosch, NGKs, some of the manufacturers even say up to 160,000 kilometers. Now, it depends on whether in hemispherical heads, where they're not going to get it, any water and salt and moisture like in our climate, if they're external. Sometimes the shells on the outside can actually rust off. The old ones used to do that all the time. And I think these ones are just worn. And that's the reason Chris is having a little bit of a misfire issue. And like he said, he's had the car for a while, and it's been a long time since it's been changed. So
a hemispherical head, I mean, I'm sorry, but that doesn't mean much to me. But regardless of the structure of that aspect of the engine, I guess what you're telling me here is that the new spark plugs are considerably better than the old ones used to be.
Absolutely.
And they last a lot longer. Now, back in the day, I date myself here, but what can you do? I used to have a tool that I could use to actually reset the gap. You just squeeze that little L-shaped piece of metal toward that gap tool, and you could put those old plugs right back in and keep using them until the little part that came down.
The electrode.
Electrode, yeah, okay. Again, I don't know all the technical terms, right? But it would burn away, and then finally you were done.
That's correct.
But you could get more life out of those old spark plugs. I can remember a fellow years and years ago telling me the other thing you used to watch for was if there was burning or brown streaks coming up on the porcelain part of the spark plug, and we can show a plug when we get it out of here, right? And you can see the structure of it. And if you were getting that kind of burning, that plug was probably done as well, because I can't remember what he called it, but to me it looked like something like blow-by or something, fire coming out of the side of the plug.
You can actually tell a lot from the spark plug by looking at it, whether there's been coolant that's getting inside the cylinder or whether it's burning a lot of oil, a lot of carbon. Back in the old days, yes, these cars used to burn a little bit of oil, so you get some carbon around the plugs. Used to actually sandblast them.
So that would be black, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think these ones, by the look of one of the pictures that Chris had showed me, they're just the gap's gone to the point where it's gotten pretty wide. A little moisture in the wires. He's getting misfire in the morning, a damp morning, so we're going to fix them up.
So in order to take it off, the first thing we do is we unplug this. So we just turn this a little bit like that, and it pulls right off.
Oh, okay, so it's just got a little locking ring on it, that's all. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's fair enough.
And there are two little clasps, one here, and I'll just squeeze that up. And there's an identical clasp, just like this, right under here. Very simple to pop up and move backwards, and that releases this.
So you pull that clip, the plastic part of it. That's okay. You pull the plastic part of it back, and then you rotate the metal part forward.
Absolutely.
And that releases it. Okay, good.
Depending on what direction is forward and back from where you're standing.
No, it's a nice simple design, I think.
And these all come apart, but there's a little bit of push and pull that you have to do sometimes. What we really need to unscrew, right here, George.
Okay. So that's just an O-ring, right? And you're
Yeah.
just holding it in place and loosening it up. So that
Doesn't have to
that
be
looks
loosened up a
good.
whole lot. I've almost
Okay.
over-loosened it there. And
Well, if you took it all the way out, that might be tricky to put back together, wouldn't it? Because it's got these little teeth here that it grabs inside this little cylinder where the screw is. So loosen it, but don't
Tiny
release
bit.
it all the way. Just enough so that you can
To loosen it up.
manipulate what you need to do. Okay.
And really, the trickiest part that I found about this part of the job is pulling this piece off right here.
Oh,
we have to
okay.
pull this off as well.
Okay.
We pull this piece, and
So
this piece
what
comes off
is
so
that?
easily.
What is that?
Let's tell us, what is this?
That is a vacuum hose, guys.
Okay. Oh, that's, you know what? Good to know. And
to know. This is the vacuum.
and the other thing, I guess, is, folks, when you're doing this kind of stuff on your own, like I said, every engine is different, every car is different. Try to remember the sequence of events.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to take a piece of paper and a pen and even write things down. I took this hose off third. I took this off second. And that'll be, and then just do the steps in reverse when you put it back together. This is not a complicated job, but there are a series of steps, and we do need to follow them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some people take their phone, take a couple of pictures so they know where things go. Or as George said, you can
Well, that's a great
you can
idea.
write it down. Or I've seen guys put a little bit of masking tape here and here, and put a number 1 here and a number 1 there. So everything they pull apart, they can put it back together. A and A goes there. B and B goes here.
Sure
But,
wish I knew that 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to just lay things out on the floor or in the gravel driveway and hope I had no spare parts left when I was done. If there was something left over, it'd be, oh my God, what did I forget? But anyway, okay, so the vacuum hose is off, and what else do you have to take
This
off,
is the
Chris?
tricky part I'm talking about. Maybe people might know a better way to pull this off, but I found myself having to sort of squiggle it a bit and push back and
You're kind
forth.
of wrestling a little,
And
right?
and this piece, as you see, is already slipped out. There we go.
Is that
I'm
some
pulling it
other
from
kind of
behind
vacuum
here.
hose there, Kevin, or what is that?
Yeah, that's actually a
There we go.
vent right on top of the valve cover.
Oh, okay. All right.
Crankcase fumes will go with that.
All right, so then this pop, now that you've loosened this clamp, so now this is just going to come right out. But I do see a wire over here, Chris. I don't want
And
to move
wire,
things.
we don't have to release. So that wire can stay there, because what we're going to do is we're going to pull this out right here, where the mass airflow sensor is.
Okay.
And that just needs a little pulling as
Let's
well.
move this out of the way. I don't want to damage
And
anything.
the one thing to look out for is there's a little ring here as well. This ring goes carefully back in here when we're done. So
Oh, it's a seal.
watch
okay.
out for the seal ring, and we'll put that back
Like
on
an
there for
O-ring.
right now. Yeah. And now that this is out of the way, we just can push it up
Oh,
here.
just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can leave that little wire connected. That might not be the case on all cars, right? So if I did have to release this, it's just a little clip right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now
And
I
you
just
push the two and pull
push
it
the
out.
push the two and
But with
pull
Pro
out. Okay, but
Classic,
I'm not going to take it
breaking all
out.
the time.
Exactly, I'm not going to do it. Older car, right?
That older car, absolutely.
Okay, so
Oh, just stop right there for a second, guys. Very important. I've got this awesome cinematic lens flare happening right here.
that's probably because of this.
I love it. No, don't. Gee, yeah, back to cars. Okay.
Back to cars. Okay.
There are 3 bolts here,
Mm-hmm.
and each have, to my understanding, a hex head on them. And is that a hex head?
That's like an Allen key.
It's an Allen key, yeah.
Okay.
And I have my hex key set, which actually works for it. But whoever used to use this before, I think they may have been using tools that weren't the best. They look a little bit, damaged and a little tricky to get out. Luckily, they're not.
They're a little worn looking, yeah, where you're supposed to insert the removal tool. Yeah.
Well, anyway, this is a number 5 that I picked up at my local hardware store.
Okay.
And it perfectly fits inside for turning it.
Good.
It simply goes on to the end of the ratchet like this.
Okay.
And at the end of the ratchet,
Yeah.
you can go either left or right, depending on what position that you turn this dial.
Okay.
I always turn it the wrong way first, and that's how I know where we're supposed to be. But this one, obviously, it's in the wrong position. So if I turn it this way, this is going to allow me to go counterclockwise.
Okay. So counterclockwise to release the screws.
Counterclockwise to release the screws. And this takes a little bit to take it, but the cool thing about this is I can just turn this around freely. It takes about 20 times to spin it around.
All right.
And that loosens it up. And the same thing with this one. This is the basic one. And then at a certain point, you can
Spin
push
them
it
with your
around and spin
fingers,
it out.
sure.
So this one I've got, and I can feel it's out now. It's loose, it's out.
See, the thing I like here, working on this particular engine, it looks like it's mounted in line with the automobile.
Yeah.
A lot of cars now, front-wheel drive vehicles and such, the engine is mounted sideways, or what's called transverse, right? And I've noticed that sometimes to get at the spark plugs, they're hidden, one side is hidden behind the firewall, and it's much more difficult to get at.
Yeah.
And that would be a whole other episode, I think, altogether, because I remember a minivan I had at one time where the instructions were actually to release the motor mount and tilt the engine certain number of degrees, and then get your hand in there with the tool. That's what we're all about here today, right? So anyway, let's get back to
Well, here's
this.
the deal.
I see
As
these
we
neat
can
little
s-
plates.
Yeah, and as you can see, my ratchet set, I'm running into a problem now. It worked beautifully for these two.
Yeah.
This third one is just not in a great position to be able to get to. And even if I was to take the little number 5 that I bought and put it in there just even by hand, it barely
It doesn't
fits in.
clear. It doesn't.
And so I needed a solution for this. And I knew from doing some other things before that these are very handy. I seem
So we're going to use
yeah.
both tools. Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and especially, and you'll see what we're going to do here. And this is very simple. You just push it in here, and now I can go and I can turn.
Just takes a little longer, but it allows
And
you to
it-
get the part off.
Yeah, and it definitely takes a long time. This was taking a little bit
So
to
you're
go back and
you're
forth.
kind of holding it there so it doesn't go sideways or what have you, and it still
Yeah.
stays in the hole there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And like with the other ones, once I got to a certain point, I could do it by hand and spin it out the rest of the way.
I know it's going to be very difficult for folks watching to see this, but I can see the frayed edges of that hole where the tool is fitting into that
Yeah.
bolt, and I would agree with what you said earlier, Chris. I think this thing has been. They tried to take it apart, put it back together again previously without the exact proper size
I would
tool.
agree, that's exactly-
And they've run the very real risk of damaging that metal and stripping it, so that you can't get a tool in there. So I think we're very fortunate in this regard. So we're just going to lift that out of there.
And we're going to lift this out, and there we go.
And oh my, there we are. Okay.
So the plate is released.
And the plugs are there, or at least the plug wires.
Yeah.
And the plugs are seated down in those those columns going right down into the engine block, right into the head. Okay.
So this is what I was talking about before with hemispherical style heads. You've heard of Chrysler has their Hemi engines.
Yes.
Right. You know, that's where the term came from, hemispherical heads, meaning the spark plug goes right in the center of the hemisphere of the cylinder head. So
So into the top of the
design.
cylinder.
Yeah, right in the center of the cylinder.
Okay.
There's lots of good reasons for that we're not going to get into today. But as you can see, there's 4 spark plugs from the front to the back, spark plug wires. We can't see the plugs yet because they're underneath here. Chris is going to jump in and let you know what happened, but I will add at this point that wherever these come off of have to go exactly in the same spot again. So this is definitely a spot if the wires aren't numbered. In this case, I think we're going to be
They are.
wires on today that may
That is
not
the
be
one.
numbered.
Yep.
Yeah, there's number 1, number 2.
So we're going to probably do them one at a time and make sure they don't get mixed up, because if they get jumbled up, this thing's going to
It's
may
gonna
not run at all,
Yeah.
or if it runs, going to be very, very rough for
Very
sure.
rough, yeah, because the timing would be off. right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
the sequence of, again, I don't want to get too technical, but you know, the spark plugs fire in a certain sequence.
And we need that.
and we
spark
need
to
that
happen
sequence.
Right at the
Yeah.
right time.
Exactly. You mentioned Hemi, boy, that brings back some memories too, because I can remember the sound of a good Hemi engine, you know? Barracudas, things like that, and they used to go.
All right, so I was very excited when I opened this up at how clean it was inside. And I sent the pictures to Kevin and George, and they expressed their happiness that it was so clean inside as well. So it looks like it's been well taken care of. It looks like the spark plugs have been changed at pretty regular intervals. But I didn't know what I was facing when I opened it up, and I was told by both of you that the spark plugs are underneath at the bottom.
This already, or
I
you
did do
tried?
some of this already. I tried, and I'd watched a couple videos online on the internet as well and everything. And most of the steps that I did to take this apart are quite well discussed in some of the videos that I watched. What I found wasn't really well discussed was what happens when you open it up and you have spark plugs underneath black plastic things. I didn't even know what these black plastic things were called.
What are they?
And they're
Kevin?
called spark plug boots,
Spark plug
Yeah.
boots, okay, there you go.
which I've now since learned. And these boots, and we'll discuss this, and I know you both know this very well, these get very stuck inside over periods of time because of the engine heating and cooling and everything, and I couldn't pull them out initially. And the trick to pulling them out is that you really should try to the best of your ability to spin and twist them around first. And
So loosen them up.
to loosen them up a bit. And up until now, I managed to get both of these to come out. This one here at the end, I still can't get this to come out. And we're going to try it today. It feels a little bit looser right now, actually, but I've been trying and trying, and at first, I couldn't even twist it. Right now, it's still very sticky.
It's very
trying to go
stiff,
around.
yeah.
To show you one that works, because I've gotten this one out just recently, I can now pull this off and it comes right
Oh,
out.
nice. So that heating and cooling, it must make this stuff brittle over time, doesn't it? This is plastic.
Absolutely.
The end of your spark plug is going to go inside, you're going to insert it inside this hole,
Yeah.
right? There you are.
It is.
Okay, there's the top of the spark plug way down there, and we're going to need a special tool, again, a ratchet style tool, but with a very long sleeve and extension on it to be able to get those plugs out of there. Okay, so I can push that down, and I can actually feel it grab a little bit.
Yeah.
Once it's down there, just a little bit of resistance at the end, and I push it down that final bit, and now it's there. And that's the contact point inside there. At the bottom of that boot, that contact point allows the electricity to come from the generating system in the car, the battery, the alternator, all those things. We're not going to get into that in detail now, of course, but your car does need electricity to run.
Yeah.
Because your spark plugs need electricity to make the spark, to allow the gasoline vapor inside the engine to actually explode and push the cylinder, push the pistons through the cylinders to give you the power you need to
Gotcha.
drive the car.
Right.
So there is a little metal clip down in there, and I felt that bit of resistance, and there you go.
Interesting.
So it's
A little bit on the end here.
a little bit
It's a
gone.
little bit frayed and everything. And I know, I only thought you had to replace spark plugs themselves. And I've since learned now that these actual spark plug boots, over time, they can be problematic as well.
Okay.
And some things related to your misfiring or your engine not running as smoothly as you like, Kevin, you can probably elaborate on this, can be due to these being of a certain age. These are very high quality, very well made, and they're very expensive. I mean, you could pay up to, if you can believe this, up to $300 for these.
Oh.
And they range in price. You can buy them on eBay and on the internet and stuff, and I've seen them, for $50. I mean,
All right.
and so here's what happened. This last one here, it would not come out. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and finally managed to break the spark plug boot. And this is what it looks like. And
So
Yeah,
the
there
bottom,
it is.
so the bottom is still stuck down there.
so the bottom is still stuck down there. And what this has done, this was enough, even though everything's still connected, and the actual wire inside the boot is all still happily connected and everything, this has broken enough of a seal, or something to my understanding, that now I'm having a misfire on cylinder number 1. So this has not gone over easy, it's caused me a problem, and in the 3 days since this has happened, it's been very difficult driving the car when I'm going into just start the
So
car.
it's creating a short circuit.
Yeah, and it's making...
That would be
yeah.
my guess.
It's
Kevin,
not
am I
like-
guessing right here, or?
Yeah, what's happening is this, the boot that you saw on the end of this rubber actually serves a purpose, and it keeps, if you look up inside there, you can actually see a metal...
I can see the metal clip.
And probably about an inch and a half, there's the terminal on the end of that wire that's going to fit, it fits on top of that spark plug.
Okay.
Now, that, a couple things going on. The fact that this is old and dried and cracked, it's moisture's getting in there, and also this is insulating the spark from jumping from that terminal inside to the inside of the cylinder head.
Okay, so
Now,
it's
it sounds
not
like,
wall.
why would it do that? But actually, if this car probably has quite a large gap in the end of the spark plugs, and under compression on a load, Chris probably notices when
Yep.
he's heading up a hill, that's when it happens most often.
Absolutely,
A little load,
yeah.
or in between, just shifted from second to third, now it's starting to misfire.
Yeah.
The actual spark is jumping from the end of that metal, and I'm sending your light in there.
There we go.
See that metal?
Oh, it's exposed.
See
Sure,
that
it's all
metal
exposed,
there?
yeah.
It's really hard to see if I get my...
Oh, no, I can see it.
Nothing worse than exposure, right?
Yeah.
So if you maybe pull that like there, so you can see the end of that metal is right there. And Chris, your finger, if you put your finger down, there's probably, you could touch the metal and touch the end of the terminal. So it's pretty close, right? Say
Yeah.
what, a quarter of an inch?
Absolutely.
About 3/8 of an inch. So what's happening is under load, the spark is jumping from that metal to the cylinder head instead of firing
The spark plug.
spark plug.
So it's not going down through the spark plug to the end anymore. It's taking a shortcut,
Shortcut, exactly.
which makes sense. I mean, I think of lightning in the sky.
Yep.
It either jumps from the ground to the cloud or the cloud to the ground, but it just takes the shortest
Exactly.
route. And if there's a tall tree, it'll hit the tree before it hits the
Right.
ground, or if you're holding an umbrella on a golf course, you're in trouble.
And you'll see that when you
It's
take
a
the spark
shortcut.
plug out, we'll actually notice when we take the spark plug out, you'll look at it and you'll say, well, isn't it certainly easier for the spark to jump that gap? But again, when the engine's under compression, it's easier for it to jump outside here than it is inside the cylinder. So
So compression, that's pressure,
that's right. When it's
cylinder pressure.
squeezing, yes.
Okay.
Squeezing the air and the fuel. So we got to get this piece out. We're not too concerned about breaking it. Chris was a little concerned about giving it a good pull the other
Right.
day, right? So
Let me get the camera in here really good so I can see what you're
I'll show
doing
you
now.
another trick too.
Yeah.
If we had a
Tricks
piece
are good.
of a piece of coat hanger and you put a little hook on the end, you could probably slide it right down past the boot, turn it so that it catches underneath the lip of this, and then pull it out. You can
And
try
we
that
talked
one.
about the coat hanger. We're going to have a look here.
Yeah, feeder gauges. Technical terms, come on, you're going to
Yeah, Kevin's working this good.
Yeah, you know, it's really dry down there. And a lot of it happens from the, from the heat
Are you
of
filming
the
that,
engine.
Chris?
We're filming just in case all of a sudden it pops out or something.
Because all I was
Yeah.
going to say is you might want to
Except I can't see much.
do a voiceover where it's saying, at a certain point, if it's gone too far, don't be concerned about damaging it, just get it out.
Yeah.
Right? That's your objective now.
Yeah.
Get that old part out of it.
Well, as you can see, it's stuck on that spark plug pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So we're going to put pliers on the end of what's left, Chris.
Well, look,
Oh,
Oh, look at that.
Go.
Look at that.
Bingo.
I was going to say, here's the pliers.
That,
How bad is this?
Let's see.
that is pretty nasty, eh? And if you get down the lighting on it, look at the...
So that's-
so that's blow by from the
Yeah,
spark
well,
plug,
been,
right?
It's the spark has been finding another way, and
Yeah.
also, you see some discoloration there. So it's been-
Yeah, I see it.
yeah, you often see that when the spark has been jumping around. So that's why, Chris, when you were hitting a little hill, it was happier to jump past this boot than fire that spark plug way down inside that hole. So did you replace the other 3 already?
I only replaced the other 2.
Is that back one still stuck?
It's still stuck.
Okay, and you tried to rotate it left and right.
I did.
Well,
Let's see.
Why
I think a
don't
couple
we-
extra hands in there
Why
can do
don't we
magic.
fix the...
And this one
might-
feels like it's turning all the way
It's
around.
definitely turning now.
Yeah. And of course you're a lot more nervous when it's when you think you're going to be able to use these plug wires, but now we know he has new ones. It
Okay,
changes
so we're going to
things.
replace all 4 of them, right?
Right? You know, if we're in the middle of the desert and we only
Yeah,
have...
running on 3 cylinders, we're not going anywhere too
Yeah.
fast. We'd get there, but it'd take a while.
So let's put a little...
So you're getting a real good grip on there, huh?
Is that the grip that's going to have it pop out?
hear that?
Oh.
Did you hear that pop?
So just, and if you're doing this for the first time, you're kind of nervous of how much you can pull. But what was really critical, Chris, is that, and you did that properly, you turned this all the way that way, because this rubber part is what actually sticks on top of the plug. And
As it
then
dries out.
Just dried out and, adheres to that.
So
we
is
pull it.
that probably a little bit of the rubber compound actually breaking down a little maybe, and then just, sort of corroding onto the
Yeah.
top of that spark plug,
Yeah,
the top of that
absolutely.
spark plug?
You're going to see something. We're going to put these other ones back, new ones back on. We're going to put a dielectric grease on there that's going to,
Okay, so what is dielectric grease? What does that do?
well, we'll get into that when we put it back together.
Okay, sounds good.
I'd have to charge you for that.
Yeah, for that information. All right, so
That's the teaser to keep watching.
that's right. Yeah. So now that you've got it all apart,
Yeah.
when you come back next month,
Do you got a lift home?
that's right. And here's Popular Mechanics, a little sidebar here, 35 cents, March of 1952. Okay, we are in a classic garage here, I think. We've got a fuel pump from the 1920s sitting right here. Could use a little fixing up, but it's here. It's got a little too loud?
Looks good.
Okay, sure, why not? Why not? Okay.
This could take a while.